On the state of the economy, what became of the nullified Finance Act of 2023? The National Treasury, remember, it failed to actually secure orders to stay orders from the Supreme Court, but in the latest review by EPRA, that is of last evening, it has actually maintained the VAT on fuel at 16%. Remember, Finance Act of 2022 provided that fuel or VAT on fuel was to be 8%, and so we expected that to revert back since the Finance Act of 2023 was declared by the Appellate Court as unconstitutional. Also, a conversation on the Kenya embracing a zero-based budget, according to President William Ruto, that is set to begin by financial year 2025-2026. Remember, currently in the financial year 2024-2025, which already, due to the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024, it forced the government to slash the budget by a whopping 145 billion, in which 105 billion was from the development budget, whereas the current budget only 40 billion. The Kenya's inflation rate is now at 4.3%. This is what will form a better part of the conversation later on this program. But let's begin with what is on our dailies. But before that, already once again, my guest in studio, that is Dr. Maina Kamau, seated on my immediate right, an economist. Thank you so much for getting time this morning, Dr. Honorable Suleiman Shabal, Member of Parliament, East African Legislative Assembly, is very critical in this conversation. Of course, just trying to compare Kenya with how other economies are performing, especially in the region. And Ruth Kinyanjui, who is an economist. Thank you so much for getting time this morning. We begin with our own publication here at MediaMax, that is the People Daily, Splashes of Ruto's Empty Promises. Integrity. From the rooftop of his fuel guzzler, our State House President has been championing pledges which remain unmet. In fact, these pledges have been listed by the People Daily. One is protest compensation of victims of police brutality during demos led by the Gen Z. Austerity measures cut down the number of advisors and parastatals by 50% to reduce spending. Theft, push amendments to anti-graft laws to ensure corruption cases are cleared within 6 months, and impunity, while stern action against police officers implicated in brutality, abductions, and extrajudicial killings. These are just some of the empty promises that the People Daily highlights. And just to begin with, Honorable Suleiman Shabal, what do you make of the PD's headline this morning?
I think first I would like to officially complain to you that you've put me between two very prominent economists. And I'm a guy who's struggling with econometrics in class. So that was a bit unfair. But I think the PD, of course, is a very political paper, and a lot of the things that have been said there are actually quite true. And I have this feeling that we're losing a crisis. Every crisis is an opportunity. And the big crisis that the country faced gave us an opportunity to start reinventing our country and correcting a lot of the things that have gone wrong. And it's highlighting what many people are concerned about, that the changes that we were hoping will come out of this crisis are not coming. And there's still time to change that. And I hope that the President will look at this and say, maybe there's some truth in this, and start taking immediate remedial action. Let us not lose the crisis that we've had and the opportunities that it creates.
Perhaps it has given the President an opportunity to incorporate some, opposition members in his cabinet. Are you not happy with that?
No, we're happy with that. I mean, that is something that, I've always believed in proportionate representation. I've always believed in that. And bringing members of the opposition into the cabinet is like having a board of directors and having independent members of independent directors who can give the President an alternative view. So I support that, but that's not enough. We need to go a bit further.
So in other words, you're also exuding confidence in Hassan Joho.
Well, Hassan Joho is our boy, so he's our guy. So obviously, and I think he will deliver.
And now to Ruth, on the pledges that the President has been making, even before getting to the broad-based government, appointing some members of the opposition into government, on the compensation of victims of police brutality, so far, we haven't seen that. It's not clear whether and how much they'll even get and when.
First, I look at everything being very blurry, not only for the mwananchi, but even for the government itself. I think they were all caught off guard. Everyone was caught off guard. Actually, the government was caught off guard. More so not only by the Finance Bill 2024, but the push that came from, I can't just call it Gen Z, but everyone else. The fact that the planning was already wrong, the fact that the rejection of Finance Bill 2024 was already wrong, means planning was already wrong. And the planning of a country, actually, one thing that you will acknowledge, Chacha, takes a very long time. Already, even before then, there was still a lot of cash flow constraints from the government side. So first, the diversification in terms of bringing on board opposition party is a good thing. The fact that it's going to balance, to bring something called national balancing, and it's going to bring harmony in terms of just balancing those areas that looked like they are volatile, and the fact that the push from the Finance Bill 2024 was not known where it's coming from. From a payment perspective, I think the CS4 Treasury is just landing, and you can see the debates and some of the instabilities that are coming from that end. And the fact that also government takes time. I look at everything like it's going to take time, and the fact that from a cash flow and income perspective, it's not clear how they are going to collect, how they are going to mend for the problems that have been there, the status quo, whether they are still going to remain with Finance Bill 2023 and or Finance Bill 2023. A lot of advisory needs to get even to the president to have a clear path. Right now, everything is very blurry and very unclear. So it's still going to, there's going to be still a lot of struggle before everything goes to normal, and even before these victims of police brutality maybe can really be paid. And you know, many things that the government have said they're going to do, how long they take. Government takes a long time.
Dr. Maina, you know, even before the supplementary budget was revised, could it be proper perhaps to factor such amounts, especially on compensation of victims of police brutality? Because we also saw at the same time, you know, the new members of the cabinet being given new motor vehicles that amount to up to 20 billion in terms of their worth.
Yes, it's a very good question, Chacha, and I think the government has got their priorities upside down. And the problem is, even before we are able to fund the basic, activities or projects of the government, the president is again promising to do more things. And I feel the government is headed to a liquidity crisis, especially now that the amount of money that we are expecting to get from IMF in July did not come through. And it is not even very clear whether it will come through, because the IMF had promised to give us $1 billion US dollars as part of the agreement that we had with them that we entered in 2021, where they agreed to give us 3.6 billion USD, but it was to be done in a phased manner. So we are looking at a situation, if IMF does not give us the money that they had promised, even what we are reading in the papers about the county government not being funded properly, the capitation for the university not being channeled to them, we are likely to experience more crisis. So for the president to really come up with more promises, the ones that we have read about compensating the people who were hurt during the Gen Z protest, I think those one will wait for longer. Because remember, Chacha, even when we did the supplementary budget, the budget for the county governments was reduced from 401 to 380. But because when we are closing the last financial year, the county government had not been paid that billion. So the budget for this year is that billion plus now
380, that is 410.
Mm-hmm. So as we speak right now, the county government is owned by the national government a whopping 60 billion. And so when I read the government is unable to really make good of the promises they have done in the recent past, it doesn't come as a surprise to me.
Still on the same cover page of the People Daily, new tough orders for police. Court directs that police officers should at all times wear name tags and service numbers to be displayed as part of uniform while deployed to protect demos. Honorable Suleiman, you know, also where you hail from, Mombasa, there are street demonstrations and the conduct of the police. Is this a good move, step to the right direction? Must we even need court interpretations for us to follow the law, or what is required of us?
I think that's long overdue. You know, everybody must be held accountable for their actions. Citizens as well as the police, and particularly more the police when they are armed and they are in charge of security. There is keeping the law and there's going excess. And I think everybody, every police officer having a name and a number will definitely help the situation, because you know today everybody has cameras. So you go overboard, there's evidence against you.
They must up now.
They must have these numbers, and I don't know why such minor issues are even going to court. It's trivial. This is absolutely necessary.
Ruth, on how police conduct themselves, if today you're arrested even by, you know, any officer, for you to request their service numbers, it might end up chaotic, and even they could translate that to you desisting to be arrested. Is it high time that our police officers also come out clean on how they're supposed to identify themselves, similar to how, let's say, even journalists identify themselves, accountants identify themselves, and even lawyers?
I think first, in every profession, there must be code of conduct. And one of the things, especially because of the interaction with common mwananchi, and I'm talking like this because common mwananchi gets very vulnerable, especially from police. And that is what pushes to police brutality, because of the vulnerability that the mwananchi normally have when they see police, or the respect they have for that. And I think identification and the code of conduct of how, I know there could be code of conduct because these are disciplined force, but maybe that needs to go a little bit more. I'll give an example. Nowadays, especially on the road, when you go to, and you're arrested, say, by a traffic officer, just by giving your identification number, they are quickly able to get almost get all your details. So I can't understand why, even when it comes to the other side of the police, why identification can be such a difficult thing, because if it's vice versa, then things become very easy to follow. When you look at the previous protest, one of the things that came out very strongly, especially after, I think, the main date, which was like 25th of July, when the main protest happened. What happened is that after that, there was a lot of goons. And sometimes it's really hard to identify who is a goon and who is not a goon. And I think that is where it draws the line when it comes to protecting the common mwananchi. Why do I say that? Because it is said that the goons are the ones who went to destroy people's property. So then identification then comes in so that we can know that police are the ones who are protecting the common mwananchi. On the flip side, also we saw that some uniformed people carrying or stealing people's properties. Then how can we be able to know those who are police or who are not police if there's no proper identification? Then we have to know that either the police are protecting the common mwananchi, or they're on the other side protecting or working with the goons. So that's a very delicate balance, and it needs to come out very clearly so that businesses, I think, people's private properties and businesses need to be protected, and identification is one of the things that can be able to ensure that some of these things are ready.
Dr. Maina, when you talk about austerity measures, there was also another court ruling that required police not to use tear gas, especially on peaceful protesters. And we understand, of course, it's expensive to even procure such. Are we having a government that itself is not, you know, keen in having austerity measures in place? Tear gas canisters will be lobbed at protesters, despite even them being only two on the streets.
I think the government does know what it's doing, because actually, even if the right to protest is anchored in the Constitution, the government tries by all means to ensure peaceful protests do not happen. Because if peaceful protests were to happen, many of us would also demonstrate. But because we fear for our lives, we fear for our safety.
Could it be a money-making venture where, you know, if you are a supplier of tear gas,
Yes.
then you're going to make more money, because at the end of the day, anytime there are demos, yes, you know, you ensure that they are properly utilized and you'll make more money.
For sure. And I think the big picture, Chacha, is the government trying to suppress that right of citizens to demonstrate and to picket, because we have so much to expose the government for, because the pain is too much for the common mwananchi. Everyone, if the demonstrations were peaceful, everyone would demonstrate. So the government has to use all the force within its disposal to ensure that they really suppress such demonstrations.
Also highlighted on the People Daily, Trailblazer, Kenya's new AG, that is on page 6. Dorcas Oduor will become the first woman Attorney General after Parliament approved her nomination yesterday. MPs also endorsed the nomination of Beatrice Askul as the East African Community Affairs Cabinet Secretary, that is the EAC. Honorable Suleiman Shabal, you're a member of Parliament, EAC. At the same time, on, you know, Dorcas Oduor's capacity to be listened to by the president, who previously has been accused of even advising his advisors on how to advise him. You know, also comment on now the new ESC, you know, CS.
Well, that's the fourth CS that we've had in the last 2 years in that docket. And we wish her well.
Does that bring confusion, especially you know, in the ESC? What's happening? Other countries, have they, you know, reshuffled or made changes so far?
No, a few countries have changed their CSs over the last 2 years. But I think Kenya, we've taken the record here, four CSs in the space of 2 years. But the ministry continues to run. We have a very competent PS there, PS Dubat. And I think he's doing a good job. So I'm sure he will help the new CS ease in. But it's unusual to have 4 CSs in the same docket in a space of 2 years. So you know, Kenya, we like to set new records. So
enough of the Attorney General.
Honestly, I think she's a very competent lady, and her track record speaks for herself. Let's hope that the president will take her counsel, because if you remember Muturi, in his last, I think it was the last newspaper before the Gen Z started, was complaining that HE wasn't listening to his advice. So let's hope this time this lady will make an impact.
Maybe there's a soft spot.
Could be.
Ruth, you know, this time around we are going to have the first woman Attorney General. How does that make you feel?
I think I'm an advocate of diversity, equity, and also inclusion. First thing that you have to be aware of, and I sitting here as the only woman, is that women are very competitive and women work hard. Actually, women work on merit a lot more, because they have to prove themselves, and that is something that has been seen or has been proved in even workplaces. And as he has said, the track record of the current AG like speaks to itself. And I think based on the previous allegation, I wish the president can listen to her. And I say inclusion because it is also seen as a regional balancing act for her being brought on board. And I hope, and I look at that like it's going to bring a lot of inclusion from areas that maybe had been ignored even with the previous AG. So I think I'm for it. I'm an advocate for women and women in workplaces, and women do better, much better. I don't want to say that because of all of you, but you guys know that women do much better in workplaces. So yeah, she's the right person for the job.
Did you honestly expect her to say that's a bad idea?
Sometimes they say women are their own enemies.
No longer.
And now to Dr. Maina, you know, Dorcas Oduor holding a very key position of the Attorney General. When we are drafting, let's say, the finance bill, and the AG's advisory is very keen. And failure to listen to that will have even an implication on the economy itself. You know, President William Ruto, is it the high time he also took the advice of now Dorcas Oduor, who is on board as the new Attorney General?
Yes, and actually the coming of Dorcas Oduor is a welcome move, because actually the reason the CEO for EPRA is saying that he has not been able to really adhere to the court guideline about reducing the VAT on fuel from 16% to 8% is because he has not been advised by the Attorney General. And by that time, by the time the Finance Act 2023 was being dropped, that position was vacant. So with the coming of the Dorcas Oduor, we hope that she will do what is needful to advise EPRA that they really need to adhere to the court to the court directive. In regards to her capability, I do welcome that move, because she's a professional and she has been in practice for more than 30 years. And I wish the president can do the same thing when it comes to selecting the other CSs. That, for instance, the CS for education should be a practitioner who has been in that space for long, someone who understands what is CBC, someone who understands where we are coming from when we talk about the university funding model, and appointing someone who is an outsider. I think the president is likely to really come back and say again that I know more than about certain ministries than the CSs that I've put there. So I think there I feel for the Dorcas as the AG, the president got it right. But for some other CSs appointment, I feel we should have done a better job.
You are keen, or you've actually tactfully avoided to mention who specifically, which will be of interest. Let's now focus on the Daily Nation. We'll do for a short commercial break. On the Daily Nation, you know, it highlights, of course, inside the 1.5 billion Equity Bank heist. But keen to note on that paper is Mount Kenya love affair with governors' impeachments. The impeachment trial of Meru Governor Kaura Mwangaza had actually third time in less than 2 years, has exposed the populous Mount Kenya region as the most politically volatile, politically volatile and, you know, restive in the country. So far, there are even images there of, you know, the ex-Embu Governor Ferdinand Waititu, former Embu Governor Martin Wambora, Kenyaga Governor Anne Waiguru, and Mwangaza, a record third time. Suleiman Shabal, you had shown previously a keen interest, of course, in being a governor. Do you feel there is a lacuna in the law on the impeachment process of governors?
Let me not talk about the lacuna in the law, because I'm not a lawyer. But let me tell you my reaction to what I think is going on here. Number one, it is good that the county assemblies hold the governor responsible. We have seen too many governors getting away with doing absolutely nothing, and the county assembly is doing zero. The county assembly's responsibility is to hold the governor accountable for what he does in that office. And too many of them have just become rubber stamp assemblies. So in a way, I welcome the idea that at least there are some assemblies that are holding their governors responsible, which is their role and their duty and their responsibility. However, when I look at some of these impeachments, like the Meru impeachment, there is definitely political mischief going on there. This is now the third time. Clearly, there are forces beyond the MCAs who are pushing for the impeachment of the governor, and they definitely the Senate has to take a tough position on this thing, and let's put a stop to this nonsense. If the governor has to be held responsible, yes. If the governor is being harassed, then the Senate has a responsibility to protect the governor. And maybe there is a lacuna in the law as to how do we create that balance, and I'm not a lawyer on that. That's my 2 cents on what's happening with...
Well, at that juncture, we take a short commercial break. Other dailies have also, that is the standard touches on salaries, crisis hits, varsities, counties, the star, big relief for students over varsity fee agony. When we come back, we'll be focusing on the state of the economy, a conversation that you can't afford to miss. My name is Joel Chacha. We take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
When it's a Saturday, there's